Okay, my friends, welcome back. Um, Looking pretty good so far. I'm now going to carry on. Let's get all this lovely green rocky effect done down here. And we'll see how we go after that. I hope you've enjoyed part one. A lot of fun painting something like this. I'm going to go in to all of this area up here. And I want to start with a nice dark kind of a warm color. All right, so I'm going to take some cadmium red, burnt sienna. Now, I do apologize if you can hear a funny kind of a humming sound in the background on the audio. My next door neighbor is cutting his grass in next to me here, next door. So I apologize if you can hear some kind of a humming. That's his lawnmower going. So, you can hear a bit of a humming in the background. I do apologize. But we'll continue on. We have to keep going, don't we? We can't stop for anything. I'm taking some burnt umber and magenta, and I'm just going to pop a little bit of that in here first. I want to start off with a kind of a warm color just in here. It kind of goes into the darkness, doesn't it? Do you know what? I'll take a little bit of black and a little touch of crimson. I just want to get a nice sort of a dark silhouette in here, just off in the distance. So that will really, that should really then kind of show the lightness in the center there. It should really help it kind of jump out a little bit more. So a little bit of dark just there. And what I might do then is, even with my fingertip, I might just kind of soften it kind of off very slightly just around the edge, just to create a little bit of a hazy feel away. So it's on, you can almost see it's kind of disappearing into the distance, into that kind of a light area. I think that will help. It might not, but I think it might just, you see the way it just sort of adds a little something to that distance in there. It just helps it disappear off. I'm going to take some Naples yellow, mix it into that, and I'm going to just soften that slightly lighter color in down here. I don't want it to be too dark and too rich. I want a kind of a slightly soft color. See, I just kind of softened it in there ever so slightly. You can soften that back in up there as well. Just kind of creating this sort of a very misty, hazy feel off in the background. I'm just going to clean my fingertip there. It's a good idea to clean my fingertips. Next, I'm going to put in, we have a lovely kind of a warm brown in here, don't we, amongst the green. So I'm going to mix that color. I'm going to say burnt sienna. Now, I do apologize as well today. I seem to have woken with a bit of a cold. I'm very, very stuffy today. It just came out of nowhere. I just woke up this morning and my head was completely stuffed up. So I do apologize. If you hear me sniffing every now and then, I do apologize. I know it's not the nicest thing that you want to hear on a tutorial, but the alternative is to wait another week before I can finish this on video, and I don't want to do that. I want to finish it now. Now, some burnt sienna, little burnt umber, little touch of cadmium yellow as well, I would say. And let's just pop that in. I would probably more or less paint the entire section with this color and then put the green in around it here and there. That would be my approach usually. That's how I would usually approach something like this. Now I'm going into some burnt umber and some cadmium red and a little touch of that sienna as well. Just going to darken it across here. Bring that down. We have more green down here, so I'm not worried about that area. I just want to get this sort of a warm brown in first. I'll take some Naples yellow and a little magenta into that. And you can see I'm mixing everything in the same area, aren't I? So you don't have to go mixing separate areas for this, okay? And as it comes over, we get a lot more pink in here, don't we? So I'm going to take some more Naples yellow and magenta just in here. You can see there's a sort of a soft pinky brown coming into the picture just over here. I'm going to soften that in. And so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just sort of, I'm looking around, and wherever I see these kind of colors, I'm just popping them in. Now I'm going to make it kind of a bit of a purple. I'm taking phaylo blue, magenta, and some white. And I'm going for a pinky purple first, like this, and then I'm going to take a hint of cadmium red into that. I want to put this sort of a purpley colour just into the brown here, you see that? And the trick with these purples is always have plenty of pink, because of course we're going into a brown. So if you put a purple into a brown, it's going to go a kind of a muddy shade. So when you're painting purples into browns, just put plenty of pink into the colour, plenty of red. Don't be shy. So we have a nice little bit of a shady colour going in there now as well. And I might add a little bit of that shady colour just in around here as well, just a hint of it. Just here and there, you see. That's all. It just helps. It just helps add kind of a shadowy hue into some of the colour. There we go. Now I'm going to then, with my soft brush, just kind of soften this down. And I'm coming down at the angle of which the land is falling, okay? So you can see the way the land is coming down at an angle, so I'm going to kind of pull it down at an angle, just to help give, it just helps give a little bit of direction into your painting. This one then kind of swoops up. I'm just going to swoop it up like that. And you don't have to do this, you can just leave it as normal, whichever you feel like doing, okay? That's just the way I like to do things. I'm going to sit back now and just take a quick look at this. That's nice. And you see, what I like about this now is that kind of bluey, purpley colour, it really complements with the orange, doesn't it? So your eye is kind of drawn from the centre, it's drawn down into this kind of pinky, purpley shade, which is nice. And that's what I love about these types of paintings with lots of colours. So the next thing I'm going to do now is, let me see, what will I do? I think I'll just finish this tree in here. We have another tree just there, don't we? So I'm going to take a small flat brush and I'm just going to go with some burnt umber, some black, and to warm this then lots of crimson. So it's a nice warm blacky colour. I'm going to start just with that first. I'm going to go in there. And I don't know if you can kind of see on the board here, but because this is almost pretty completely dry, and that's there since yesterday. That's what I love about MDF. It really soaks in the paint, and it allows you to kind of work quickly. So that's going on there now quite nicely. I'm going to put that up there, and we'll worry about branches and stuff later on. Let's not worry about them now. I'm going to put a bit of dark in around the back of this, just going over some of that, soften it in. And I'm going to also be working more details into these trees later as well, because I feel they need just a little bit more detail. So I'll clean my brush there now at that, and I'm going to take my other round brush that I used yesterday. Before I go any further, I need paint. I've run out of paint very quickly. Burnt sienna and Naples yellow. I think I'm okay for now. Then I'll dampen this large brush. I'm going to start putting in some lights. Take burnt sienna, little crimson, and a touch of cadmium yellow as well. I just want to start a bit of Naples. I just want to start lightening some of this. Start getting some lights through this. And this will take a few goes, because you can see it's softening very quickly into that darker colour, isn't it? So you just keep at it. Just keep at it. Don't be shy. Just pick up plenty of paint and just add some nice light shades into that. And I am being very sort of loose with this, just to give it a natural feel. So look, you could see maybe, you know, the lights are just catching on some parts of the tree trunk, just here and there. I could put another little bit just here and there as well, look, just to mix it up a bit, because you will have lots of ridges. That's what I would say. You can see there's lots of ridges on these trees. It's simply just a couple of squiggly lines. That's probably the easiest way of describing the way I paint. It's just a few squiggly lines here and there. And then I'm going to take a very small brush and I'm going to mix some green. So I'm going to take some cadmium yellow, a little black, and I'm going to mix a nice bright green, a little touch of white. And I want plenty of yellow in this one. I want a nice warm kind of a colour. And I'm just going to pop some green into that. You see, just wiggling the brush, popping a little bit of it in here and there. It's just to give it the impression of, you know, all that green moss that you would get on a tree in a forest. And it's also complementing that foliage up there at the same time. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of that green around here and there. The next thing I'm going to do with that tree is I'm going to go with my palette knife. And I can see there's a lot of bright, it's almost like a bright yellow on the edges of some of these, but there's a lot of light catching. So just get your palette knife and scrape a little touch of that onto the trees here and there. Come on, let's just have a bit of fun. Isn't that nice? I like that. It gives it a certain kind of a roughness to the tree, doesn't it? It really works. So I'll stop at that now. I am going to sit the trees down into that ground. They need to look like they're sitting, don't they? So what I'm going to do is take, I'm trying to decide now which kind of a brush is best for this. And I'm thinking a fan brush, do you know that? I'm inclined to go for a fan brush for this. I'm going to mix a very, very dark blacky green. So some lamp black, little thinners, and cadmium yellow. Lots of thick cadmium yellow. That's a very thick colour, that paint. A very dark, warm green. Okay, so lamp black, cadmium yellow, and let's take a little touch of burnt umber. What I want to do with this is just sort of put it up here to sit those trees down. And I want it to almost soften into some of those tree trunks. So the idea is that you can't really see where the tree trunk begins. So they'll sort of disappear into the ground as such, if you like. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. A bit more black and a touch of blue. And I want to go in the back, just at the back of them, and get a little shade. So you can kind of begin to see now they are almost starting to sort of sit down. I'm going to even go up here and just darken that back into the background slightly. And then I'm going to use that colour to create some darks in the greens as well, down underneath. So when I'm looking at this, right, you can see there's a lot of bright green, but I'm focused on the darker colour of the greens in there at the moment. So I just want to suggest a little bit of dark green around here and there first. And I'm going to turn it as it comes down. So it's giving the effect of the ground falling very sharply just here. You see that type of effect? So I'll switch to my large flat brush. Let's put a nice dark green in around here. Mix up some cadmium yellow, a bit of turpentine. When I say turpentine, I mean thinners, okay? I have a little bit of linseed oil in my thinners. That's what I mean, a little bit of thinners. Let's put this dark green in down here. Just pop it in, cover all of that area. Plenty of Nice, warm, kind of a dark green. I go over my rocks. There's not even a need to paint in your rocks or sketch in your rocks, if you like, because I tend to just put the rocks in afterwards with my brush anyway, so you don't really have to sketch in and try to paint around rocks and all that kind of stuff. Let's just go like this first. So you can see then I'm transitioning from that brown into the green. So I'm popping the green into the brown. It's picking up brown and then I'm putting the brown down into this green. So everything is coming together in one kind of a shade, okay? It's going from a brown to a green, like that. Just tap it around, create a little bit of texture, interest, whatever you might like to call it. As it comes forward, I'm going to put in a much cooler green down in the front down here. So a little bit of blue and a bit of black. And you see, I'm just popping in with my, it's a large flat brush, looks just a regular flat brush. Just dab it in to create some texture. Softening it through, but you can see then it goes down into a kind of a cool bluey green down at the bottom, just down here, as it comes into the shade. I'm going to do the same with this section. This is a very dark area up here. It has a lot of dark greens going through it. So a little black, a little phthalo blue, a small touch of cadmium yellow. And the reason behind me doing these dark colours so early on is that I can then use a fan brush and go over with some very bright yellows. That will really bring it to life. And I'm just softening them down again at an angle. You see this? Coming down at an angle to suggest that there's a bit of a hill going up. That's always a good way to do greens like this. If I go flat like this, it's just going to look like a flat field. So by angling your brush down like this, you're creating direction on the hill. So you can already see it going up and around. And it is a forest, so you can just be very rough with this. You don't have to go trying to paint, you know, individual little rocks and individual little bits of green grass and all that kind of thing. I prefer to just go like this to keep it more of a natural kind of feeling. Now I'm just going to pick up some cadmium yellow, lots of cadmium yellow. I'm going to just start lightening up here, just a little as it comes up into the light. I'm going to kind of soften it down then. And it's amazing what you can do with just one brush, a flat brush. Again, let's try that. Let's pick up some cadmium yellow and go up here. And you see, I'm using the corner of my brush, you see. And I'm just dabbing it and turning it as it comes down and turning it as well as I go. Putting little patches of that light green just here and there to suggest little bits of light grass popping up, a little bit of moss, all that kind of thing. A little bit off in the distance. And when it comes to here, I'm going to start really lightening this like that, okay? Just as it's coming down and turning downwards. You could use a fan brush for this, would be absolutely fine as well. Get a bit of white in there. A fan brush would give you a lovely effect. I think I'll just stick with the brush for now. It's not a bad effect, it's quite nice. It's giving you that kind of, those sort of lines, it's helping with the direction as well, you see. It's coming on quite nice. I don't think that's too bad at all. What I'm going to do next is start bringing some of that yellow up into the brown as well. A touch of Naples yellow, just to mix it up, add a bit more brightness just here and there. Now, what you don't want when you're painting this, and what I see in a lot of paintings from beginners and amateurs, is they'd have very solid little sections like that. It just doesn't look kind of natural. What I would do and what I would say is try kind of softening them away completely until they disappear. Don't just have lots of sharp lines, all right? Try to kind of soften them back down gently into what's underneath, because it creates a natural kind of a shadow. So you start with your light, then you soften that way back down. Just dab it around very randomly. It really does help. It gives you a lot more, it just helps. It gives it a bit of more of a natural kind of a feeling to the landscape. So over here, for example, I'm going to kind of soften all of those down, and it's going to just mix with that lovely purple underneath. Go right through, just go everywhere. Bring it down and dab it around everywhere. Just soften it, because I'm going to be putting another brighter layer on top of some of these anyway. But, you know, I'm trying to kind of simplify this as well for you. I don't want to go into too much kind of detail, because you might just get flustered and lose interest. So I'm trying to keep it simple for you. Now let me just stand back and take a look at that. That's coming along quite nice now already, isn't it? We have a nice foresty feel. But this is still very early stages. Very, very early. I'm going to go and put in that lovely bright, whitey, yellowy kind of, whitey, bluey green kind of a colour. We get some cadmium yellow. And I'm going to take some of that. I'm going to take some phaylo blue. And then plenty of white. So I'm going a lot more on the blue side of a green here, okay? So there's a lot more blue in this, with plenty of white. And that will give us a nice, very nice, bright colour. Okay, let me try this. Let's just try it and see. I'll fill that in first. Then it just comes down like that, disappears down. Pick up more of that. And we can create, look, little bits coming off of it, sticking up in the air. And all the while I'm using just a corner of my brush. That's all I'm using. Take a bit of cadmium yellow with some white. And just pop a little bit of that nice light up there. Bringing some down very slightly, because what I don't want is just one blob of bright colour up there. I want to sort of soften it down slightly as it kind of moves down the canvas. So I'm adding a touch of more yellowy colour now, just to help bring the transition down a little bit. Like that, you see? Just bringing it down here and there. So you can see it's just graduating from top to bottom. And go up there now and just add a suggestion of little bits and pieces sticking up from the top, like that. Okay, it just adds a bit of interest, that's all. I can also see there's some beautiful little purples in there. I don't know what they are. They're like little tiny purple flowers. So I'm going to take some phaylo blue. I'll just give my brush a quick clean first. I'm going to take some phaylo blue and some magenta, and then a dollop of white. I can see some beautiful purpley flowers dancing around up there. I don't know what they are, probably bluebells or just some wildflowers or something. But I can see them, they're beautiful, really are. And again, that will complement the shady colours down here. If it just adds something to the painting, I'm going to come down and pop few in just here and there. Like I'm literally just dabbing with the tip of my brush, just here and there, very randomly, look. That's all. And you can see it just adds a nice touch of colour, doesn't it? Could even add one or two just along here and there. Because it's a forest, you're going to have wildflowers and all that kind of thing popping up here and there. You could even just pop some magenta on its own in there as well. Very, very random little tiny blobs of colour. I won't overdo it, I won't go too crazy with this. So I'm going to stop now, clean my brush, and I'm going to put in some rocks. Should we get some rocks in the painting? I think we should. Come on, let's go. Let's grab a small pointy brush. And I'm just going to go with, first I'm going to take a dark colour for the rocks. And basically I just make a very, very dark blacky grey. Take some black and pop it into that soft colour we just made. Now this may need to be a little darker, but look, let's just suggest a couple of rocks here and there. And you can literally see all I'm doing is just popping some random shapes into the painting. That's all I'm doing. Random shapes, a couple of random little shapes. It's just to suggest lots of rocky areas here and there. Bits of this and bits of that. One or two there. Pick up some of that dark blacky brown colour. We have a nice big one just there. Just pop that in. All those darker colours. Just like that. And you can take your time with all of these details as well. You know, you don't have to put rocks in here if you don't want to. It's completely up to yourself. I just think it would help, you know, add the impression of some detail in the painting. Very rocky sort of a feeling. It's literally just little dabs of colour. You see, just tiny, tiny dabs here and there. Because when we come to put in the lights on these, then they're really going to come to life. And I'll just pop this last one in on the front here. Just the shadow side. You're going to pop in a little dark colour to suggest the shadow side of that rock. And I'm just going to soften it down into the grass underneath. So you can see it's already kind of sitting in the grass, isn't it? You can do the same with these. Just soften it into that grassy area. Give it a couple of squiggles around. I'm going to really darken it just at the top with a little black. So we have a lot of it done. A lot of our impression of detail is finished. Now we just need to mix a nice colour to add some light onto these. And I'm going to go with a very bright grey. Some white, some phaylo blue, because they're going to be bluey, and a touch of magenta. It's really a very light mauve. And you could even put, let's try a hint of Naples yellow as well. Naples yellow just softens the colour ever so slightly. Let's try this. So, for example, go like that, okay. And you can see I'm just literally hitting, just touching some dabs of colour here and there. And you see, when you sit back then and look at this, or when it's on the wall or whatever, they just naturally look like highlights on the rocks. Because all I'm doing is giving it a little impression of highlights on rocks. But your brain will just sort of fill in the blanks and the bits in between itself. And I will put in extra lights over these as well. Don't worry about that. A couple of small flat ones, angled here and there. And then we come over here, put a couple of, well, there's a bit more, too much white in that now for me. Get a bit of magenta just to soften it down a bit. Yeah, I probably will actually put in some very bright ones over these. But it's all really just to suggest rocks. Another good idea for doing this would be just to use a palette knife. If you're more comfortable with a palette knife, you could just use a palette knife. That would create some wonderful effects as well. And this rock here is just a rock, but it's covered in a lot of greenery. So I'm just going to pop in a little bit like this, and then we'll add a little green to it shortly. I'm going to take some Naples yellow, put a little Naples yellow in there just to catch the light. A little touch of Naples yellow here and there will always help. Right, I'm going to stop, and what I'm going to do then is simply I'm going to kind of soften with dry brush, just soften that in, dragging the paint down and in together. Soften it down, bring the colours in together ever so slightly, just being very rough with the brush. You see, just softening it down, bringing them together a little bit, just so we don't have kind of solid marks. The last thing I'm going to do just for these rocks, and I normally wouldn't, I'd normally just leave it like this, but I think I'm just going to take a little bit of black. I'm just going to add a little strong black just here and there into these rocks. So for example, I'll come down here, put a little black like that. Neat paint on its own, nothing else. And again, soften it upwards. I just think a very solid chunk of black just on some of these will really help them stand out even better, don't you think? Just like that, you see, little touches here and there. You don't have to do every single one, but just one or two. And next we're going to just crack on it and get lots of that bright green into the painting. And I think after that we're almost done, really. So I know now you think by looking at that, all the rocks are just kind of floating, aren't they? They look like they're just floating in midair. The next step is to get that lovely rich bright green and start sitting these down. That's my next step. So I'm going to take a fan brush. Let's try a fan brush. Probably one of the most versatile brushes you could use. And I'm going to get lots of bright green. Now my friends, before I start, I'm going to put plenty of yellow on my palette to save me having to reload and reload. Let's take a slightly damp brush, go up here, and the problem with my yellow here, you can see how thick that yellow is. Because it gets very cold in the studio here at night time, the yellow, especially the yellow, only the yellow, it tends to go very thick in the tube and very difficult even to get out. I don't know why, but when it warms up, it becomes much softer. But you can see I'm really having to drag that paint through just to get it out. I don't know why that happens. Maybe it's just a type of filler or something that they have in the paint. It just gets very, very thick when it's left outside in the cold. Now it's in the studio, of course, but I don't know why, it just gets very, very thick. So phthalo blue, cadmium yellow, and some white, plenty of white. I'm going to just go up now and just start adding with the fan brush. Just going to start sitting some of these down. So in underneath, dab a little of this down, and you can see immediately they tend to kind of sit down to the ground underneath, don't they? Now you could also put a couple of blades of grass, stuff like that, just to mix it up a bit. But I do want to keep a nice sort of a soft, hazy feel. Some of these. And the trick with doing this is to try and get as much paint as you can on the tip of the brush, right on the very tip. So I'm pushing into the brush like that, or into the paint, and then it does leave just a nice bright section of paint. And remember what I was saying, try to soften it back a little bit if you can. I want to avoid having just thick chunky lines. So for example here, I'm going to just go down like that, bring it downwards and turn it, and then sit the rocks down into it, you see. And I feel this gives a nice natural feeling to this painting. Create a little mound up there, nice little mound, soften it down. And even when you're dabbing like this, you can see how the fan brush, it just creates lots of texture. It gives you lots of interest in the painting, doesn't it? Moving it around in circles, just having fun. You see how quickly now we've kind of developed some lovely suggestion of coverage in this. It really does help. Right, so I'm just going to stop for a moment, stand back and take a look. I like that. I'm going to start making it a little warmer. I'm going to take cadmium yellow with a hint of sienna. And I really want to add some warmth into this. It's a nice warm shade there now, isn't it? Little touch more sienna in this. So cadmium yellow, plenty of sienna, and a little thinners. The thinners just helps it leave the brush a little bit easier. You see, it really does. Now, that's a nice colour, isn't it? So that's going to really warm up the painting. I'm just going to pop a little bit of that in between. And as it comes further away, actually, it's going to get a lot more prominent. It's going to really soften it in as it goes back. And as you're doing this, you may even feel that it's not even coming off of the brush, but it is. You're softening little touches of that colour into the distance. It is coming off the brush, you just can't really see it, but when you stand back, you will. Take a little bit more of that. And I want to create a bit of balance. I don't want very warm colours on one side, so I am going to just add a little touch of it on the other side as well. I think just to help balance the painting. I think it will help. I'm going to just apply some flicks over here. Just a little bit here and there. Next, I'm going to go very bright. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow. So you see the point of this is you're getting brighter and brighter. And I like to leave the brightest ones until the very end. So cadmium yellow and some white. And I'm then going to just really add some nice bright colours. You could even just apply a few flicks of grass. So the idea is just to kind of mix it up. You don't want all of these little lines like this. A couple of little flicks of grass is nice as well. Just mixes everything up a little bit. And I'll pop a little bit of that in up here as well. Then what I'm going to do is create some shadow. I need to mix a very blacky green. Lamp black, phthalo blue, and a little cadmium yellow. A bit of burnt umber as well. Got a bit of burnt umber in there. And I want to create a little shadow of these rocks coming off. You see? Just a touch of a shadow. And you can even use that dark colour as well to create a little shadow here and there over this side. Because remember, as this is coming down, it's going into a shadow. It's going into a dark side, isn't it? So let's just apply the shadow. Pop it in just here and there. Be very loose with it. Don't have to be absolutely perfect. I am just creating an impression of the scene. I don't want to go crazy with details. I don't like going crazy with details. Now I'm going to just take my dark brush, my small pointy brush, get some black, and go in here, just sharpen up some of the darks on these. So you can see I didn't try to copy every single detail in the picture, did I? I'm just trying to take an impression from it. That's all it is. And then I think what I'll do is, with this palette knife, I think I'll just add a little hint of light to a few of these rocks using this colour. It's a hint. It's amazing what you can do with a palette knife, isn't it? You can do so much. I think I'll stop at that. I want to start putting in these lovely pathways. And this is really the focal point of the whole painting, isn't it? These paths. They're just so beautiful. I'm going to take a brush. I'll take a small round brush. Not a very fine brush, but a little round one like this. I'm going to start with the lighter ones. It's a very light grey, isn't it? Let's try some blue, some white, and a little touch of magenta again. The magenta really giving a beautiful, warm feeling. So let's start with these ones up here. Let's just, do you know what I'll do? I'll just go and paint it all in like this. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, isn't it? And we can darken them as they go off into the distance. You see, it's just giving the impression of them disappearing into the darkness up there. I think I'll just paint it this colour, and then once we start adding the darks in there, it'll all kind of make sense, won't it? So I think I'll just go with this very bright colour first. See, let's just get the shapes like that. So what a lot of beginners would tend to do is to try and paint each one separately. The risk with that, of course, is that you risk making each one completely different in colour. So what I would suggest is just painting everything like this in one shade. Now it's picking up little bits of darks as I go, but generally just paint everything in one colour like this, and then just add darks for your shapes. So I'm going to make this one just slightly longer there. And to create perspective, they get wider as they come towards us. So this last one I was going to come right over like this, you see. And that's creating a nice little idea of perspective. Well, there we go. And I'm going to darken some in the distance. I'm going to make a dark, shady bluey colour. And as they go off up there, I'm just going to sort of darken them down ever so slightly. Take some of that dark browny colour. Look, let's just try it. And let's darken these as we go way up into the distance. Even try a little bit of black. Go a little darker again. I really want to give the impression of this disappearing into the depths, like so. So I'll just soften this now, dab it together, my finger, dab it all down, like that. Next thing I'm going to do is start putting in the dark steps. So that dark section in between those steps, I think I'm just going to use a black and a touch of crimson. Let's grab loads of paint, or any dark colour you like, and let's simply start putting in the fronts of these steps. And what happens is, you see it's mixing with that light colour underneath, but that's okay. Just keep adding and adding and adding the colour over these. Let's get nice high steps like that. Then just go back in and pick more, and we come up here. And you can use just a pointy brush for this, by the way, a small detail brush if you like. You don't have to use bigger brushes. I will go to my pointier brush in a moment. I just want to get some of these in. I'll put another one here, I think. Break that one up, just a little. And there is a trick in doing this to create steps going higher and higher. And I'll show you what it is in just a moment. I'm just going to take some black, and I'm going to go to the edges and just refine the edges of all of this. Take maybe a hint of cadmium red just to warm the colour ever so slightly, and maybe some more crimson. So, as I was just saying there a moment ago, you want to create the impression of one step getting higher. At the moment, it just looks like a load of gaps in between the steps, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do is I'll show you down just a second. I'm just going to get these refined just a little bit. I'm going to start putting the dark in along the side, on the right hand side. I'm going to take more crimson, little touch of cadmium red into that. Go for a very dark, warmy black. I'm going to just start refining the darks down here first. Put that one in there, and I'll just put that in there. And go along and just create the sides of the steps. And what I want to do then with all of this, you see all these dark areas here. What I want to do is soften that, so it just softens outwards into that bit of green next to it there. So I'm just going to take a small brush, look, and just sort of drag it out. So it looks like it's just, the dark is just disappearing into the greenery beside it. You can use a little fan brush or something as well now if you like, by all means. We take some sienna, pop a little sienna in there, just to help merge it outwards. Merge it up and out. And then finally I'll just go very dark, just in by the step itself. And again, soften it out. So you can see now it just kind of goes nice and dark down in by the inside of the step, doesn't it? So I want to show you, as I was saying earlier, I just wanted to show you about creating one step higher than the next. I could use a brush or a palette knife for this. I'll show you the brush first. So what we need to do is get some very bright colour, okay? Let's just grab some blue, some white, touch of pink or something like that. Just make a nice bright bluey colour. What you need to do is, the top of these black points here, you need to go back and finish at the bottom of these points here. Okay? Just soften that in there. So each one has a step up, and you need to show that the next one is higher. Just like that there, you see? Same with this one here. We'll come out then nice and wide with this one. So then you can kind of begin to see each one rises slightly more than the next. So that starts to make a little more sense now, doesn't it? And I'm just going to finish off the black lines in between. Get some really strong black. And let's just go out nice and wide with this, come down. Same here, nice and wide with this, come down. And just tidy some of them up. Just make nice crisp, sharp lines. And I know I'm going into a lot of detail with this now, and you may find it a little complicated, but as I said, if you just follow the sections, just one section at a time. If you just try to follow one section at a time, You will get there, I promise. Now I'm going to create some nice light on these with a palette knife. I think a palette knife would be the best choice. Let me make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to take some phthalo blue and I'm going to take some crimson. Lots of white. Now I need to be whiter than that. I'm going for a very bright sort of a blue. And this should really stand out now and really catch your eye. So let's get a nice little roll of that bright bluey colour. And I'm just going to start at the edge and drag it in slightly. And I may need to go brighter again. I really want it to stand out. A nice bright hint of blue in there. There we go, that's it. Look, drag a little bit of that across. Now I need to move my board out slightly so I can get the front piece down here. Drag it across and leave it just disappear. It's simply to create a little texture. And finally, I'm going to take my small brush, take a little dark colour, and I'm just going to pop a few tiny little dots here and there to suggest it's just a rough metal plate, isn't it? A few tiny dots here and there. And you could really just leave it at that if you want. It's completely up to yourself. I'd be happy enough with that. You know, it has everything that I wanted to have. I think I might just strengthen some of the warmth up here with a fan brush. I think it needs a bit more light, a little bit more of orangey light up there. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow, some cadmium red. Now my thinners is very dirty, so I probably won't be able to get this colour right. But I just feel some warmth up there in between that green. I think it needs it. I'll try some burnt sienna as well with some cadmium yellow. And that's a nice, there we go. That's the colour I want. A nice warm kind of a brown, just popping in between some of these. And touch of it just over here, just to balance out the painting a little. Then even some cadmium, some Naples yellow as well. Perhaps just at the edge of some of the trees to suggest some highlights just catching on the edges of those trees. And I think that's okay for now, my friends. The last thing I must do is just pop a lot of branches in up high, up there. And, you know, I think that's pretty much it. We're there. So as I'm here, I might as well just pop a few in just so you can see. And I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I really, really do. I hope I didn't make it too complicated for you. Just follow the little steps, do small steps at a time. Don't be tempted to rush along and finish it all very, very quickly. That's what I would say. Just take your time. So what I do is I just pop lots of thick branches in up here, like so. Really just to fill up the area, that's all. And then go to my small brush and I pop lots of small branches in as well. Just use some black, lots of thinners, and I'll just kind of go up and I bring a few branches even down in front of the tree like that. because that just helps to suggest that there's more trees outside of our view coming into focus and popping into the picture. And with the MDF being a very kind of a dry board, just keep adding plenty of thinners into all of these. You see, just flicking them along, coming down from above as well. Lots of tiny flicks, that's all. You can be very quick with this, or you can be very slow, it's up to yourself, but I like to be very quick like this. And finally, a couple of light ones. So I go in then some Naples yellow and just pop a little tiny suggestion of light catching on some of them here and there. Just small little suggestions. But if you want to leave it alone for fear of ruining it, you can. You really don't have to go to all of this length. You can just leave it. And what I would even do is, because if you have kind of some prominent mark there that you're not happy with, you could simply take a small fan brush or soft brush, just flick them in, look, and soften them through. That will help just push them back into the painting a little bit further into the distance. You see that? Just soften it all in. Don't be afraid, just soften it away. There is one thing I think this needs, a little bit of life. How about somebody walking? You know me, I love to paint my carrots. And if you know me, I love to paint a carrot. If you can paint a carrot, you can paint a person. Okay? That's what I would say to you. I'm going to take some cadmium red. And I'm thinking a dark colour, because they're going into the shadows, aren't they? They're going way off into the dark forest. So let's paint a little carrot. You know what a carrot looks like, don't you? Of course you do. Let's just paint a carrot. Okay, that looks like a carrot, doesn't it? It's big at the top and small and comes down to a point. Would you agree? Let's paint another one. A slightly smaller carrot. Just fix that now. We don't want that person to have strange looking legs or anything like that. And then let's just put two little dots. When you're painting a male carrot, let's call them carrots, male and female carrots. The male carrot will have a little tiny gap between the head and the body, just a little bit, you see that? Whereas the female one will kind of continue down. Now they may be a little small, I'm thinking. Let's go bigger with them. Just a little. You could add a little hint of light onto one of them if you like. Or both. Just to suggest a little touch of light coming in. And let's just pop the heads. Like that. And a touch of his shadow just to kind of plant them on the ground. How's that looking, my friends? Does that just add a little touch of something into the painting? What do you think? I'm happy with that. There's one thing left for me to do, and that's just to sign the painting. Let's come over here and sign the painting just very quickly. I'm very messy with my initials when I'm signing. I know I should pay more attention to it, but I don't. I'm happy with that. We're finished, my friends. We're finished. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm quite happy with that. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm surprised I got it done in 2 parts. I thought, let me just straighten this here. I thought this was going to take at least another part 3 of a tutorial. I really did. So I'm pleasantly surprised. It worked out nicely, didn't it? I could add little flowers in here, maybe a couple of tiny dots of red to suggest some roses and little flowers and stuff like that. You could absolutely do that, just add some little more details. But I'm very happy with that. I hope you liked it. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I hope you have learned something from it, anything at all. If you've learned one little thing, then it's made my job worthwhile. Thank you very much. I'll be back very, very soon. I will have a lovely little tutorial coming on my Patreon channel very soon for patrons. Once again, thank you all so much for your support and generosity. So I will see you very, very soon. I'm going to go and grab myself a coffee because I'm very happy. I think I'll have a cup of coffee, sit back, just look at that and admire the artwork that I created. Okay? Enjoy yourselves, my friends. Happy painting. I'll see you again. Take care.